the East Birmingham organiser. I was contacted a few months ago by a lady we will keep out of the public eye for a moment. We'll call this lady Jane. Jane's originally from Oxford, and she's here to tell her story with regards to sexual grooming.
It was in London. I'd moved back to Woolwich, where my family were from, back in 2003. And I was about 23 years old at the time. I lived in a flat on my own in an area that was heavily populated by West Africans. And after a few months of being there, every time I left my flat, there would always be a couple of African men that would follow me into town. They would just be talking to me and just trying to ask me to be their girlfriend and asking me personal questions about my life, wanting to know everything about me. At the time I worked at the hospital in Woolwich, and they were a lot of them worked in the hospital as well. And after, when would it have been? About February of 2004, and it started to get quite bad. It started to get to the point where I would only leave to go to work early in the morning, and coming home was really bad because they were all congregated in a place called Francis Street, just round the back of my flat, and in the car park where I lived. And it got really, really bad. I began to ring the police and the council at that time because I could see what was going on. The council wouldn't move me because the police weren't involved. The police wouldn't get involved because they hadn't done anything to me. And then there was a problem at work. One of the guys was extremely racist towards me, and I reported him and was suspended for it. I had no income. I was too scared to go back to work. And I couldn't leave my flat at all because they really, every time I left my flat, there was loads of them there. And I couldn't even get out to buy food or sign on. I couldn't do anything. And it got so bad. The police wouldn't listen. They just kept telling me they weren't doing anything wrong. Okay. And it got to the point where I didn't have any food, or any gas, or any electric. And I had to open my front door and I had to go down to them in the car. They didn't say anything to me when they saw me coming. One of them just got up off, he was sat on his car bonnet. He just got up, he opened the car door and put me in the car. And that was when it started. And we drove, I don't even know where it was. We drove up and it was the dark end of the street. And he made me have sex with him a few times. He was smoking crack in the car and trying to get me to smoke it too. And that was it. After that, I would be picked up most evenings and I didn't even know where I was going to. I would be driven. Sometimes they'd park in a car and I'd have to get into another car and drive off and help to do things with that man. I wasn't... Sorry.
It's okay, you take your time. Take your time.
The men were allowed to do whatever they wanted with me. I was never asked. I was never allowed to say no. And it just went on like that. Sometimes I'd be taken to a flat with other girls and we'd have to work in the flat. Most of them were on drugs. a lot of them were always covered in bruises. I got beaten up a few times. You were less than nothing. Can we stop for a minute? There was one time I was driven to a flat in Catford, and it was a Cypriot man there. He wasn't able to have sex, and he had me there basically to take it out on me. He had kept instruments aside to use on me, and he'd forced quite a few things inside me. When I did eventually come out of the flat, I tried to say to the guy that was waiting for me what had happened. But because I hadn't come out when they'd wanted me out, he just grabbed me by the back of the head and was just smashing my face on the dashboard in the middle of the high street, and nobody took any notice. Nobody took any notice at all. Towards the end of, before I left, I got to the point where I was bleeding all the time, and I was going to the toilet all the time, and where they just kept grabbing me at the back of the head all the time. They never treated me like a human. They were always pulling me by the back of the hair. My head used to bleed, and I wasn't able to sleep with pain. The only people that ever spoke to me and treated me like a human was the British National Party when I got in touch with them. And they tried to help me get out of London. When I left, I tried to tell the police everything that happened, and they just didn't care. They wouldn't even talk to me about it.
So what have the police actually done for you,
Nothing.
Jane? Nothing
at all. Nothing.
You sat here today and told your story. What would you like the British National Party to do for you now?
I want to know why the police won't do anything. I want a public inquiry into everything. I want to know why this is allowed to happen. There are children in there as well. I've been sent to one flat, and I will feel guilty for this until the day I die. And there was one flat I was sent to work in, and one of the other girls there said she'd been there the day before, and there was another woman there, and her child had to come with her to the flat. And you can see they'd had kids there. There were toys, and the mother started panicking halfway through the day, and to shut her up, one of the guys poured a boiling hot kettle over the little boy, and so that the mother would do as she was told. And I tried to tell social services in Woolwich. I tried to do it anonymously, and they just said, we don't deal with children, we don't know what department does. And that was it. That was the end of it. And I feel so guilty because I didn't do anything more.